Yes, sir. What's up? It's Sean, Autotopia LA. We are on day number 6 of our Midwest road tour. This is gonna be the final shoot of this trip. Super stoked again for my friends at Roadster Shop for giving me a Legends truck. This thing's been amazing. Thank you to our friends at Holly for making this all happen, MSD. Today we're getting into something that blew my mind at SEMA last year, and it's a Firebird. It's an Indy car. That's all I'm gonna say. We're gonna start from there. IndyCar, Firebird, let's go. All right, you guys, so here we are with the guys from Horizon Motorsports, father, son, Russell, Cavan. So I'm warning you guys now, if you haven't seen this car yet, it is a true freak of nature. Give the very condensed version of your background that leads to you being able to make something like this actually work rather than just look neat.
Yeah, I was really fortunate as a young person in early 20s to come to Indianapolis and go to work for Patrick Racing in their IndyCar program. And I was a chief mechanic, a crew chief, a team manager, and ultimately in 2002, I became a team owner, and that's really where the name Horizon Motorsports came from.
Yep, Cavan. You grew up with this dude as your dad.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
It has to impact your thinking, and now you're in school.
At Purdue University in Indianapolis for motorsports engineering. It's like mechanical engineering, but focused on race cars.
Yeah. What year Firebird do you start with, I'm curious?
So this started off with a 1973 Pontiac Firebird drag car, actually. So it was in Detroit, Michigan. There was 2 feet of snow on it. He shoveled it all off and loaded the trailer. It was a total turd. I mean, it was rusted basically from here down. The only original aspect of this, the roof, some of the metal here, and the top of these fenders. All the rest is brand new. We just cut it out and put a whole tube chassis in.
There's got to have been help from people on this, or is it really you guys building it all and then like somebody else painted it or something?
One of the biggest aspects of this car is this started as Cavan's high school internship. I brought in just a few people. We brought in a guy to do the wiring because it's such a complex skill. Cavan did all the welding on this car. We had a gearbox mechanic at McLaren IndyCar team work on the gearbox rebuild with Cavan so he could see how those internal parts worked. And we had McLaren IndyCar team's shop guy.
Sorry
doing
to
all the
laugh
shots.
at you, man. You're killing me with it.
I mean, these are skills that are so specialized that if you have a guy come in and you do those things with that guy, then he's really going to learn it from somebody that knows instead of his old man that says, I've seen this done once or twice, so let me show you how this works. I mean, those are tidbits of time compared to the overall fabrication time of about 10 to 12,000 hours that it took to build the chassis, build the body, build all the carbon parts, and put this whole thing together.
10 to 12,000 hours in the, you would say 90% of this body is from flat panels of metal shaping and
basically what we did is we obviously worked with a artist from Indonesia. I think it's already 53 on Instagram. He finally went into like a 3D rendering, and we can see that stuff more in a 3D space. We like it, let's start building it. So then basically the fenders, what we did is we made it all out of steel rod, and then we basically draped paper over it, and we got a general pattern, got a look for it in person, and used that to cut out the metal and bend it and get to the right shape.
We were trying to sort of follow the rendering that we had worked with Artie so much to create. But there are certain things in renders that you can't really duplicate in reality. I mean, when you look at a car that's stanced, for instance, and it's so low to the ground, has no tire clearance to the fenders, it's not going to be functional. So you have to start looking at how you want to create a fender that fits on a car, especially one like this that can range from a 2-inch to a 3.5-inch ride height. So we think that 3.5 is our street height, and at 2 inches more like our racetrack height. So we have to have a fender that can do all of those things while you're creating different cambers and you're turning the wheel and you're hitting a bump. So we spent an enormous amount of time with wheel flares on this to make sure we could accommodate that. And then also, we weren't restricted to the 108-inch wheelbase of a Firebird. We went as much as 111 to get all of our geometries where we wanted, and we could move the fenders around anyway.
The wheelbase is now slightly longer than what it was
Correct,
originally.
It's 3 inches longer, And we like that anyway, because really, I mean, the longer it is, the more stable it's going to be at high speeds. And, this car has a top speed of 204.
He's got one of those big shiny things with a lot of tubes and curly coils coming out of it.
Wow. Holy cow.
You really want to be able to get up on there and get in here and look around, and work on it. So you have to have something strong enough to stand on.
So this isn't even really aero, it's just a shelf for when we're doing demos like this and stuff.
It holds tools, and anytime you're working on the car, you can put your parts on there. So it's very useful.
Obviously, frame 100% hand fab.
Yeah, we ultimately went through 450 feet of tubing to build this car because we knew we had this Trans Am body to work with, which we wanted roll-up windows and doors because this is going to be a street-legal car. So we started with the idea that we knew it could only be so wide if we were going to maintain these IndyCar geometries of the suspension, and we wanted a weight distribution in the car that was roughly 53% to the rear. We would have to slide the engine back and give our wishbones all the room they needed in the front to be able to duplicate an IndyCar suspension under the hood. And so we moved the engine back 28 inches, which I don't know if that's a record, but it's got to be close to it. It's an enormous task because if you ask me what is the downside to this car, it would probably be the serviceability of the engine. But that's why you step up and you buy a really good engine. And once you tuck it away into its little home, you hope that you don't have to get back in there.
What is your engine?
It is an LME engine, late model engines from Houston, Texas, built it for us. It's 400 cubic inches, so our only request to them was not, hey, we want to make 2,000 horsepower. It was, we need 9,000 RPM.
It's like a Formula One car.
They built us this LSR, which is a block that's cast here in Indianapolis by Concept Performance. It is the equivalent of an LSX, but in aluminum. Brodex LME heads. It has the best rotating assembly that you can put in there, all billet. A really amazing valve train, they the best that they can put in them. And then it has a daily 7-stage dry sump system. It's 400 cubic inches because we de-stroked it. It's got a shorter stroke than normal, and we didn't want the cubic inches, we wanted those RPMs.
You wanted the RPMs. Is it an NA car?
No.
Nope.
It has some twins on it, doesn't it? Yeah, I thought so. Yeah.
It's got Garrett G35 900s, so each turbo is 900 horsepower capable. They're actually behind the seats.
Power-wise, what's it currently making?
We're currently set at 1,300 wheel horsepower. When we were on the dyno like a week ago, our tuner was like, we could go like 1,800, 2,000 horsepower a day if you want. And we're like, we're not gonna break it today.
So mild tune right now is 13 tire.
And the 1,100 foot-pounds of torque, and we're at 14 PSI. So we can push to 25 PSI with this setup. So you can imagine how fast the horsepower is coming in. And then, of course, we run VP X98 ethanol. We have a flex fuel sensor from Radium.
Up front, we obviously have a double wishbone suspension with a push rod that goes into a rocker. It pushes the shock. And then right here, we have our T-bar and our blade, and this is the anti-roll bar. This is our heave spring, or a third device. And that is a ride height control device.
This is what is so cool about IndyCar teams back in the late 90s were like little F1 teams. We had wind tunnel programs. We did 7-post shakers. We built our own shock. So this was very advanced stuff that got sort of pushed aside for a more simple approach. There's some trick stuff in this car that helps it have mechanical grip at low speeds and maintains a very solid platform with an aerodynamic load on it. That's what this whole idea of a heave spring is all about, is as the aerodynamic influences come onto the car at 120, 130, 140 and on up, the car will be compressed to the pavement. You have to keep it from crashing down. And so that's what these heave springs do for you. It's a complicated arrangement when you think about the fact that there's systems of the road springs through links up to a roll bar. As you compress both springs down, this gap becomes narrower, and that's what holds the car up on the heave spring arrangement. So it takes time to get all this done, and one of the reasons that we selected a Motec electronic system is we wanted to have push rod load sensors. That's what these do. They sense the load at all 4 corners. And then we have a damper pot. So these rotary pots tell us how much and how fast the shock is moving. So it looks at velocities and the total amount of movement.
So you have the ability through the Motec system to see everything that's happening with your suspension.
This car is about as advanced as a current LMP car. I mean, it really is loaded. I mean, our engine is fully instrumented. We have exhaust gas temperature probes, all of the cylinders, so we can tell if that cylinder is firing correctly and what the temperature is. And then we have pre-turbine lambdas, post-turbine lambdas. We have a steering pot, clutch pressure, brake pressures, wheel speeds. All the temperatures are sensed and alarmed. So we have a lot of safety.
Like everywhere.
Yeah, every sensor we have on the car, we can look at in real time on the dash when we're running. So you don't have to plug the computer in to see it. You're going to be able to know generally.
Get a real general sense right there. So if you had to get more granular, you might have to plug a computer in, but I got it. I'm assuming it's a sequential trans.
Yes, it's got a trans axle in the back from Extract, 6-speed currently, all geared to go 204.3 miles per hour.
paddle shifted, right? So
Pneumatically.
So it is an air shifted, like our buddy Vicious Mustang, or like the C10 that's from Z-Rods.
And here's the wheel.
So that's the steering wheel. And Cavan would have to explain it to you because he's also a pretty good gamer and a pretty good sim driver. And he designed this entire wheel. So he even sat down in SolidWorks and drew this hub. There's a computer board that lives in here that all of these switches, except for the steering and the push to talk for the radio, come through 4 wires. And so this CAN bus can decipher which button is which. And so there's traction control, there's turning signals, and of course the paddle shifters for shifting. And then Cavan drew this carbon plate that he wanted, and Sencut Sen did that for us, and Rob Billett machined the hub for us.
But basically we started off with this wheel from Sparco, and we started off with the SBA coupler. All the rest we basically started from scratch. So I sat in SolidWorks and I designed up this hub, and it houses the computer in it. And basically there's 3 pieces here. There's the cap, there's a spacer there, so then if we have different drivers in, we can change the spacer out for them. There's a lot to consider.
How many hours do you have into just designing the steering wheel, dude?
I have a bunch of time in this board, I have a bunch of time in the coupler.
Yeah.
I probably have anywhere from 60 to 70 hours in the wheel.
Actually less than I was thinking, to be honest with you. Let's keep moving through this thing, man. I'm
getting overwhelmed.
I'm freaking out, man.
We have these big sticky Michelins on there, and they gave us a little bit of extra speed, because when you're looking for the final speed that can be calculated, you look at engine RPM, final gear ratio, and tire diameter, and that tells you your final speed.
What are you geared at then? What?
It's funny, the rear axle ratio is effectively about a 386. And then our 6th gear is a slight overdrive, just 0.95 overdrive. So if you were to say, what is the overall 1-to-1 output, it's about 3.66. So it's fairly low geared. And so when you're riding this thing later, you're going to see that he needs to get clutch out through 1st gear, probably through 2nd gear and get to 3rd before he really puts the hammer down, because it revs so fast. In 1st gear, you just blow the tires off and you'll be over revving instantly.
Yeah, it's like...
And it'll go 60 in 1st.
So the car's moving 10 and the tires are doing 60, and then you shift.
Exactly.
It's just a lot happening really violently, very quickly.
Yeah, I'll bet. I'll bet.
So earlier he told you about the G35 turbos, and we have our Ram Air 6, which Pontiac never made a Ram Air 6, but we did. Cavan and I created the entire shape for this by hand. Cavan sat with a piece of foam.
Router, literally just looked at our concept photo, sat there with a block of foam, we glued it all together. The buck for this was just crap on top of crap on top of crap. It was foam,
fiberglass, Bondo, paint, cardboard, aluminum, but you just want to make a shape, and then you take the shape, you make a mold from it. It was a 3-piece mold because it splits in the center as an upper and lower piece. We were really inspired by a Pagani. Because our turbos are really in the rear, we needed a roof scoop, and it was funny at SEMA because so many people walked by, the hood was off, and they would look up under there and go, it's another EV.
Where's my goddamn electric car, Bruce?
I said, no, it's an LS. And they're like, you can put an LS right there? And I said, well, we did. It's not recommended, but we did it. I tell people it's like driving a Chevy van from the 70s. So your feet are a little bit to the left.
Yeah.
And your engine's right next to you.
Yeah.
But it's not that annoying. I mean, you get used to it that fast.
Oh, I'll bet.
Yeah.
So then the tube's coming out of your dash here. The turbos are feeding into there?
Correct, yeah. So the air goes in the scoop here, into a manifold where it Y's out. We usually have a K&N panel filter in there.
Okay.
And then it branches through big 4-inch tubes, and then there's a G35 900 turbo down on each side. And
in that pedal box in there, like I'll open the door and show you a little bit of what that all looks like. It's actually all out of an Indy car there. Basically, the headers live right next to your feet. And it's all heat shielded and everything. It's all built to handle like 25.
Boy, that's tight seating right there, man.
I wear size 13 shoes, so I cannot drive this without racing shoes.
Yeah, I get it. I mean, I'm a size 12, and I'm looking right now going,
like, does that even work?
It's going to be a tough one.
But it is probably one of the most comfortable cars you're ever going to sit in.
Is it really?
That Sparco, these seats, these Circuit 2 seats, are just incredibly comfortable, and you really don't notice the offset. The steering is dead set in the center. Those anti-roll bar controls in the center that you see, the black handles, those are for adjusting the roll stiffness front and back. So those roll bars we showed you when we were talking in depth about the heave springs, so we can adjust the blade on the track.
While you're driving, because it's all 100% mechanical.
Yeah. But if you walk up front, just walk up front, I'll move this.
Right here. You'll see the blade going.
Oh,
so
yeah.
When it's completely horizontal, it's completely stiff. It doesn't have any deflection in the blade. And all the deflection shows up in this bar, and we have different size blades and bars and different materials. Then if it's fully vertical, deflection happens in the bar and the blade. So and on top of that adjustment, you can adjust this bar to these positions and these positions. So there's almost infinite tunability in this suspension setup.
I remember at SEMA, Steve, because he understood it, I was standing next to him pretending like I understood it. There's a mechanical move this, move that, and boom, you change your ride height.
So simple. It's a turnbuckle. So if you break these jam nuts right here loose, and all you have to do is this right-hand, left-hand threads, you just change it. Each flat is basically 50 thousandths of an inch of ride height. A full turn is just a little over a quarter of an inch of change in the ride height.
So that a handful of seconds and you've moved your ride height.
Yeah.
But now that's just the front, right?
Rear's done the same way. Everything you're seeing in the front.
And what do you access through the windows?
Yeah, that's why we have windows that have quarter turn fasteners. So it allows us to just pop this thing out, take the hose off, and you're diving right in.
Got it.
Yeah.
You know, you were starting to say, I mean, you said Michelin's.
The wheel is 14-inch wide, 18-inch diameter rear, 10-inch wide, 18 diameter front.
Got it.
These rear slicks, they're 15 inches wide. They're like the biggest slicks you can probably buy in the world. Forgeline wanted to work with us, and we were like, okay, yeah, just kind of do whatever you want. So these wheels are based off the current Trans Am car.
But this is Forgeline made these for you?
Yeah, we had a conference call, and they said, we just want to get involved in your car. We love cool cars, and they're just great people. And we just said, look, as long as you can give us a tire diameter in the rear of 28 and the front is 26, and we'll give you the BBS center lock design, and you hit our offset so our wheels are in the same place in our fenders, you knock yourself out on
So you
the
give
rest.
them all the math of what you need, and then you let them have at it with the design, the color.
Well, we
Boy,
asked them.
they killed it.
Oh, yeah.
They killed it.
Yeah.
I've fallen in love
Oh,
with
for
the whole
sure.
setup.
Killed it. I mean, I know I've been joking about it the whole time we've been together, but I genuinely don't understand most of what you guys are saying. I can I can look at colors and go, I love the color. The color of your car, I love the color.
Basically, I picked the colors for this car. It took forever to finally decide, like, we want to do the bronze look that matched the cage and the wheels. And we had 40 different grays we had to pick from.
Sherwin-Williams did a sponsorship for us and took care of our paint and our primers and stuff for us. And it's not like it was an Audi certain,
Like
gray or
Mando
something.
gray from Audi. It is a similar color.
Okay,
Yeah.
got it. Yeah. Rear suspension, also all IndyCar stuff, right?
Based off the front geometry, yep. And you can see
Right.
the turbo right
Oh,
there.
now we get it. Yeah,
and then you can see how it dumps into our diffuser, actually.
In context, at the dyno the other day on Tuesday, if you stood behind this car and you went to 9,000 revs, you wouldn't be able to wear this hat.
Blows that much.
There's so much air coming out of the back of this car, it blows over, and it sounds like a jet engine.
How much between the front insanity at the ground and this back here? What ballpark? Well, you guys don't ballpark shit. What's the? How much downforce does this car produce?
So our first iteration with Veris Engineering on their CFD test, it was about 13% front aero, and we're about 2,500 pounds of downforce. We're 2,400 pounds at 200 miles per hour. They did some quick changes on the front and just basically changed the end plate design and extended the front flaps a few inches on each side, and it brought the car up to 3,500 horsepower, or not 35.
3,500 pounds of downforce.
Yes.
And what does the car weigh again?
3,100.
We went even further than that.
So we think that we're somewhere around 45 or 5,000 pounds of downforce, and we think our center of pressure is getting more to where we want it to be. Our ultimate goal is 6,000 pounds of downforce, and I think Cavan mentioned earlier that we built this car in a modular fashion. As you saw earlier, we bolted on the front wings, each corner.
Yeah.
The center splitter is one piece, each side is its own component. So when we develop, we can just develop these outer pieces. And the same goes for the rear diffuser. And this is going to be our next big area of development, because this was sort of a creation that we came up with in the garage before SEMA, and maybe it's the Indiana influence of a combine or something that's going to cut corn. But
Let's go take down a cornfield with this, man.
Yeah, it's big and it's obnoxious, and it's perfect for the back of the car as far as shape and scale.
Yeah.
We think the center works extremely well. The outers, the expansion rate is probably a little too much. So we're going to rebuild those outers, and that's where we think we're going to pick up the extra 12 to 1,500 pounds of downforce in fixing those.
To help me on a perspective side to understand it, let's go back to the latter part of your career in IndyCar, which is some of the serious golden era of IndyCar, man.
Yeah.
How much downforce were those cars producing?
Those cars back then would produce about 4,500 pounds of downforce, but they were 1,500-pound cars.
So you're producing downforce-wise in the same realm as an Indy car was in that era. Yeah,
Exactly.
got it.
The way we've done that is stealing the technology again, like we've done with the suspension geometries. These are IndyCar main planes and flaps. And we just took two IndyCar rear wing main planes, joined them together in the center to create the overall width that we wanted. Then we used a flap, and we didn't really want the flap all the way across the back because we knew this was going to be so powerful. And in the front, we've done the same thing. We've used the same main plane profile, and we've improved our front aero quite a lot.
You're fully adjustable here.
We are. These pillars at the bottom in the base, we have hams, slugs that go in there. And so we can take those slugs out and put in a different one and change the main plane angle. Packaging is what I wanted to really talk about, is everything is sort of purposefully packaged.
Yeah, a lot of the function, like the functionality, created the form of the car.
Sure, I get it.
These fenders right here, we want them to exhaust air. Like the front fenders are a lot better about showing that, but in the rears, we have basically an exit here and an exit here because like the LMPH cars, they have a hole in the top of the fender to reduce lift.
How big's your fuel cell on here?
It's about 15 gallons. So we built this entire chassis around this fuel cell. Later, as we started taking on more quality partners in the build, Radium agreed to come on board with us, and they provided us with the fuel system.
So you drop 5 gallons in what, seconds?
I think that's probably a 10-second fill or something on this. I've not timed it, but I would estimate it would be.
Yeah.
And then the tank that you see back here is the accumulator for the air shift system. So you have a compressor, that's what that little bit is up in the front, and then you have this air tank that kind of maintains
This is your air tank for
It maintains about 150 psi of pressure all the time. So as soon as it shifts, it'll instantly replenish that amount of air. And then, of course, it's got forward and rear mounting cameras. Because our interior is fully bulkheaded, the only way we can see out of the back are the rear view mirrors and the camera. This gold thing is where we jack up the car with the air jack. And of course, if we need to be pulled out of the sand or something, we can pull the car out.
For sure. Let's go look at your interior over here for a minute. Dude, there's no way you're driving this with a standard shoe on.
No.
Basically, looking in the cockpit here, we have our first switch, which is power. This powers the whole car on and off. And then there's a start button right there. And then this is to turn the power steering on and off, just completely.
Didn't you say you had adjustment to dial here, correct?
Yeah, so basically you just unlock it.
Now I get more or less power steering depending on what's needed.
You can feel it and everything.
Yeah. Feels like the combination to a nice built safe.
Exactly. Press the blue button and then look at the dash, and you can see there's more values that we can look at and stuff. Press the orange button now. And then here's our race page. So this is the most important page. So you can see that we're at 9 traction. It won't allow the wheels slip at all.
Yep.
And then we're at 9 torque, which is 1,300 horsepower. Grab this switch and just twist it around, and you'll see the value change. Yeah.
Got it. Wow.
Yeah. And then obviously press one of the green buttons. And then you can see up here on our shift light module, it changes the signal.
And then that's all.
Yeah.
Like, I would so love to be the guy rolling next to you guys, watching the reactions of driving through Indiana in this thing, man. Whoa, you're not kidding on the clutch.
Oh, well, I can actually show you how much you're pressing. Yeah, I was telling them beforehand, like my left leg gets pretty tired because it's not only dealing with the brakes, but it's also dealing with the clutch. And you need about 1,000 PSI to press the clutch all the way in. And you need about 2,500 PSI to max. At least that's how much I can do pressing the brake. There it is. There's the pressure. So there's your clutch.
So we're about to show how weak I am right now.
And you can press it more than that.
God, dude, that's...
Yeah.
Oh my God, my leg just cramped on me. I'm not kidding. God.
My leg! Press the brake pedal.
How do you drive this thing?
Come on. It's pushing me out of the seat, man.
Yeah. Now that we're talking about the brakes, this is how you adjust the brake bias on the car.
Mechanical or electrical?
Mechanical.
Yeah, then this is a reverse pull. It's mechanical too. It doesn't lock out, so you have to hold it the whole time if you're in reverse. Oh yeah, it's all suede up here.
Because why not?
Yeah, why not?
I mean,
make it comfortable.
So something, Cavan, you seem like a pretty humble kid, so you haven't said anything about this yet, but your dad was explaining to me that you're the one that welded everything. The exhaust, that you welded everything.
At the very beginning of the project, I didn't even know how to weld. And we had a fabricator from McLaren, the IndyCar team, come over, and he showed me the ropes. Like, I knew a little bit. I could weld it. It would stick together. It was not pretty. Basically, he just showed me the ropes and gave me the process, and it gave me enough to kind of learn from there, to look at YouTube and look at all this other stuff. Yeah. Now I can weld stainless steel, but aluminum, and like I'm told, if you can weld stainless steel well, you can do titanium.
Didn't you say also that after you learned more, you went back and redid some of the welds that you didn't like the way they looked?
Yeah.
Even though they're hidden in like heat shield and stuff like that.
And unfortunately, the prettiest welds are in the hardest to reach places that you'll never see.
Yeah.
Like like the bottom was the very last thing I welded.
Yeah.
All perfect, all like dimes.
Where do you control like the AC and the audio and stuff? We're gonna be listening to music out on the airstrip, right?
The music you're gonna hear is so beautiful. It's 9,000 RPM of LSR.
Symphony of turbos, LS, high RPM.
Just so you guys know what we're gonna do, this car, it does have a license plate, so it is street legal, but we're not gonna do that. They've arranged an airstrip out here that we're gonna go slightly let this thing eat. I know you're still in some, I get some shakedown elements that are still happening. Let's go camera up.
Let's go shake and bake.
Yeah, that's what time it is. Shake and bake.
Shake and bake.
Woo-hoo! So you've heard me mention it a couple times now. This is our shirt for the Autotopia LA Midwest Road Tour. I'm super stoked about this one. This is by far my favorite yet. And it is live on the store now. Head over to atlamerch.com. And I really mean this. This one's gonna go quick when you see the names on the back of this shirt. atlamerch.com, it's live on the store now. If you're getting in a race car, you gotta wear the suit, man. You just gotta wear the suit. It's gonna be total shake and bake
this one says
time.
Hollywood, bro. That's all
Hollywood
you.
cigarettes, yeah.
Hollywood cigarettes.
Hey, did you guys ever see that movie?
I'm the Hollywood one, he's the redneck one.
Shake and bake.
Helmet works. mind blown. I mean, nothing more radical than this car, including, sorry Chris, vicious. Vicious ain't so vicious no more. Nature of this car. I mean, it just doesn't, I mean, it makes sense given the description of what was built here, you know, that ultimately it's an Indy car that they disguised as a Firebird, but then it's got a twin turbo custom made LSXR. What the hell's that? I mean, I don't even know what to do with my hands.
We were real happy with what was going on.
It's like a Formula One car.
That is the craziest car ever.
So that was the 6th and final shoot of our Midwest Road Tour, and what an incredible week this has been, all culminating into the experience with Russell, Cavan, Horizon Motorsports, and this just mind-numbing Firebird. Truly blown away. Thank you, Roadster Shop. Thank you, Holly, MSD, Bear, Classic Instruments. Thank you so much for making this week happen. Thank you guys for hanging and watching, and I will see you in the next episode. Later, guys.